Okay guys, so for the training with this building, it's not very often that we get the opportunity to actually bust through sheetrock and stuff. We can go through it at the training tower, but having the opportunity to actually use the hands-on portion of it is very limited. So with that being said, we're going to do some saving your own, a little bit of saving your own. With that, I'm going to focus on just getting you guys to realize that unless you're in a building that has a slab foundation, every direction is an exit. So if you ever get pinned, trapped, lost, you can always go through walls, go up, or in like a pier and beam type structure, or if you're on a second, third floor, then you can go down. So even down is an exit in that. I really wish we could have used the building over across the alley that has pier and beam in it so that we could go through the floor. So just think about two things. Everything's an exit, every direction's an exit except for the slab, and then where can I find air? So some points on that is just think your worst case scenario. As a firefighter, your worst nightmare. I'm running out of air, I'm separated from my crew, I'm about to run out of air. I call my mayday, but I'm gonna run out of air before they get here. Start thinking outside the box. What can I do to find a way to breathe, to buy me time? Does it make sense? So once you get down, you don't wanna wait as long as to like when your vibe alert starts going off. A couple of things with that is when that vibe alert starts going off, your anxiety is going to go through the roof. You're going to start breathing harder. You're going to kind of start panicking. So a good bit before that, go ahead and make some holes in the wall for you. Make a couple of punch holes for your hand holes. All right, what this is going to be, it's like I said, worst case scenario, nightmare situation. You've run out of air. You're getting down. You've already made some holes in the sheetrock, and you're thinking, man, I'm about to take my last couple of breaths. If you get down to these holes, you leave your face piece on. When you take your regulator off, the cone of your face piece, you want to stick it in that hole. Start breathing the air from in there if you run out, right? Sounds like a complete nightmare, right? The reason I would make a couple holes is so if you run out of good airspace in this stud space, you can fill over for it and then move to the next hole. You might think like, well, if I punch some holes in there, isn't smoke gonna get in there? Maybe some. But most often that it's going to take the path of least resistance, which would be up and out. It's going to bank down some, but still, we're just trying to find a way to make holes that we could get to. You wouldn't want to just make one hole and be sitting here breathing, about to run out of air and trying to make another hole. Does it make sense? So maybe make some, try to cover it. If you're breathing here, make a seal around the face piece, or use your other hand to reach over, cover it. Other options, if we're looking at going up, drywall would be better. If we were going to go up the wall and stick our head into like a ceiling space or something, make those holes there, and then when it's time to go up there, get your head above the ceiling level. But like in this drop ceiling, if you could just get a hand hole here, and then has anybody seen the climbing the sheetrock where you kick a hole kind of like a ladder? Like I said, last case scenario, you wouldn't want to do it in like normal duty boots or in tennis shoes, but in life case, to save your life, you got to do what you got to do. But just climb that wall, get into that good airspace. Anybody have any questions? A pier and beam house, you got a wood floor. So always think below you, because which direction is smoke going to go? Up and out, right? So make a hole. If you're at that point where you're about to run out of air, make a hole in that floor before you're running out of air. Get a place where you can breathe if you need to. But then, once you have that made, go ahead and start trying to breach a hole that you could get under it. Because if you're in a pier and beam and you run out of air, there's plenty of good air underneath it. So if you can get down there, then that's going to buy you a lot more time, because the fire is going to go up and out, smoke up and out. Even if a house burns all the way down, even like a pier and beam house, if you were underneath it, you bought a lot of time. So remember, every direction's an exit, unless it's unless it's a slab foundation. Every direction is a possible exit. So just start working. And if you get to that point to where you're about to run out of air, start thinking outside the box. Where in this structure can I find some air to breathe to buy my time? It's good? All right, guys, so we're going to pretend that, like when we're doing search, two guys go in on a nozzle and we're searching the structure. We leave one guy at the door, right? And the guy searching goes into that room. So the guy at the door has the nozzle. We're not pulling the nozzle into every room that we're searching. So the guy with the nozzle sits at the door. The guy goes in and searches. And now for this drill, we're going to simulate that there was a collapse here separating you from that guy. He calls a mayday. He's stuck in there. Now he's going to have to breach a wall, go through the sheetrock, and come back out and meet up with you. Or let's just say worst case scenario, and the time it takes him to breach the wall, RIT's activated, but you're running out of air too, so you start backing out. You leave the nozzle there and relay to RIT, hey, he's in the room at the end of the nozzle. So y'all go to the nozzle, and that's where you'll find him. But let's say you're the guy that's in the room and you breached your way out. You come out, you find your way back to the hose line, but you didn't find the nozzle and you don't know which way to go. What are you going to do?
Follow it.
Follow it. All right, so Thomas, come here for a second. You come to the nozzle and you're coming from this way. You feel the couplings. Which way is the truck? Which way is taking you outside?
This way is the way I'm following.
Okay, how do you know that?
Smooth bump, bump.
Okay,
Bump.
good job. Everybody agree with that?
Yes, sir.
All right. So now for some techniques on breaching walls. We have a lot of younger guys in the department, and maybe even some guys or people that haven't used hand tools a whole lot. So it's kind of new to them to use the tools. And like I said, in a real world situation like this, where we're not just going through the motions, but we're actually busting sheetrock. The other day, I told somebody, hey, you're that firefighter that's stuck in that room. Breach that wall like your life depends on it. Okay, so when they got the axe, they started taking swings like this and chopping with the blade of the axe, like you would think if you're chopping a tree or doing something the axe meant for cutting. I'm going to cut through it. I said, hold on, wait a second. Look at how much progress you're making. Got to remember, this is life. Your life depends on it. Hit it where you can take out a little more, make a little more damage. So then they flipped it around and started hitting like this. So that's a little better. But you want to think outside the box. Think of like the surface area of the tool. So you could use this as drywall. You use the side face of it, and instead of making a hole like this, now you make a hole like this. If I start grabbing this and pulling, it's going to pull little pieces off. If I take the axe handle, drop it down in here, and rip that sheetrock, now I've moved more sheetrock quicker with less energy. That's a pretty small stud space, right? So what have you been taught on how to get through a small stud space?
Sit on your butt, drop your bottle through it, and swim.
There's all those techniques. In a building that the structural integrity is already compromised, I'm hesitant to want to take my bottle off or to go backwards. So for just a little extra time, but I don't know that it's any more time than taking your bottle off, you got to complete this to get through it anyways. Go ahead and bust right here. And then take a baseball swing at the stud. And now you have a much bigger area to get through. And I didn't have to remove my air pack or go backwards. Now I can sound where I'm going, but I can also go head first and look at what I'm going into. Make sense? And even if I wanted more room than that, that's a pretty good size hole. All right, so now we'll go back to one of the old dorms and I'll let each one of you try it. We should be able to get three wall, maybe 4 wall breaches out of this room. Whenever you're ready, Caleb.
Has anybody gone? Good job. All right, guys. So a lot of guys, they think like, and me too, before I did this the first time, you see a center block wall, or here you're up to a center block wall. If you were in life and death and you breached the wall hoping it was sheetrock and then another wall of sheetrock that you could just go through like we just did, but you hit cinder block, there may be good odds that this is a exterior wall. So, just like we talked about before, we're going to flip-flop this. We're inside right now. We're going to pretend we're outside. Thomas will go outside and be our victim, and we'll have to breach this wall to get to him. He'll put the Halligan bar so we know where he's at. We get here. Hey, do you still have air? Yeah. All right, step back. We're going to make a hole. Now when we start hitting this, the best way to do this, like the first time I ever did it, they gave us tool appreciation and technique appreciation. They said, we're going to give you 8 minutes to make a hole that you can get through. After 8 minutes, we had a hole that literally looked like that Andy Dufresne hole in Shawshank Redemption. You're not going to get through that. Most firemen especially wearing a pack and gear. So then they said, excuse me, let me show you a technique that'll help. So basically, say we have 3, 4, 5 guys. If I'm the first guy that's going to start breaching this wall, I have the rest of you stand behind me. Single file. So I'm going to swing on this wall 8 times. We're going to take this part right here because that's where he's at. We're going to swing on it 8 times and start taking this out. And the best way to do it is kind of work like a target or like a spiral. If you start trying to dot it, I haven't seen that work. Although I did hear earlier that there's a good technique that I might try later. But for right now, I want you guys, since we got progress here, it's easier to chip this away and chip away and chip away. What you'll see is the first 8, 16, 24 hits or so, you might not get a whole lot of progress. But with only taking 8 hits, stopping, going to the back of the line, but passing this. So if I take 8, I hand it to you, you take 8, you hand it to him, he takes 8. What we're doing is we're staying fresh, That's 8 good hits. Your 8 good hits. His 8 good hits. Now that gives me breather time. So now my next 8 hits are better than what my second 8 hits would have been. Does that make sense? Okay, so, and then we want to minimize the time between hits. So when I get to 8, I want to hand it to you and get out of the way, and you be right back on hitting it again. And then I'm going to go jump back in line and be ready. All right, now see how noticeable that'd be if we were looking for him?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and shot meant for him to push it out. Okay, go ahead. All right, time out for a second. Now we're already starting to make progress, right? Could we get somebody through that hole? Maybe, maybe not. But if we go ahead and bust this, we could either get a bottle through or they could get their head out into fresh air, right? So let's work on getting in there. And then from that, you're gonna see that now that once you got this, the bricks are gonna start coming much easier. All right.
Inside now, breaching inside.
Yep.
Top easier.
All right, good job, guys. All right, so y'all busted these wires pretty good, so I don't even have to show you the next part, but could we get somebody out to that hole? Yeah. How long do you think that took?
2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes. So it's not that much of a doom, like you hit that haydock block wall. One thing that I'm hoping you're seeing is thinking outside the box. Hey, I'm gonna stick a hole through here, put my Halligan, tell them I have a marker for them. They come around. Now think about this. If the reason we're breaching this is because my exit collapsed and I made a little hole. Maybe I didn't have a whole lot of room, but what I did was take that Halligan and punch that hole through. Now Rit comes around with a sledgehammer because you tell him it's a haydock block wall and go, all right, we're gonna go do the 8 lick method from the outside. It's gonna take us 2 minutes to bust a hole that can get him out. That might be faster than coming through the building and then having to dig through the rubble. Plus, you know, you're in a collapse already, and then if you start moving that rubble, maybe you make it more susceptible to more of a collapse. So what I'm trying to get you to see is it's not as, what's the word I'm looking for? As indestructible as you would think. So think outside that box. Remember, think air. So when you see daylight, there's going to be a lot of hope. And then if you ever do have to go through a cinder block wall, hopefully you don't think of it as being quite so impossible anymore.